Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen, here with Uohna June Thiessen and Louis D'Souza. Today is Monday, May the 25th, 2020, 4 p.m. New York time. Wherever you are in the world, thanks for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. Here we're in the United States. It's Memorial Day weekend, and so this is in the midst of a pandemic where people are staying home, this is another day to stay home.
Yeah, I know, right?
Wait a minute, hold on here.
In the UK, we have something quite funny I found from South Africa, and you called it a specific day. Over here, we just called it bank holiday. Okay. What the banks have got to do with it, I have no idea, but they don't seem to name it after things. They just call them bank holidays.
Well, considering what the history of bank holidays usually is, it's probably better if you don't know.
Yeah.
So anyway, we are experiencing gorgeous weather here in New England, and I understand your weather in London is beautiful as well. Uohna and Mark have some rain, which is not terribly unusual for this time of year, but kind of unusual for Florida. So
right.
You're cooling things off down there.
Yeah. So it's nice and cool and still bright and sunny and, well, a little overcast, but it's just bright and really nice. So No barbecue, but people were swimming in the pool. So
in the rain, okay.
Well, in the rain, yes. They were of the previous generation, but that's okay.
We won't comment there. That's whatever is fine. So anyway, we have a topic that we're going to discuss based on something that Jeffrey gave us last week.
And I hope he joins us.
Hopefully he will. We'll see. Dreams and visions, an interesting topic because I can't remember the last time we actually talked about anything dream related. We have talked about some stuff regarding what do they call it? There's the different psychic things, and there's one for being able to see stuff, and I can't think what that thing is called.
Yes.
We've done shows on that, but I can't think of any shows where we've talked about dreams. So this is going to be a little bit different. And of course, we're going to be doing both the more spiritual side and the more scientific side, I'm sure, because we have our resident scientist in residence, if that's not too redundant. Dreams.
Oh, wait.
I don't even know where to begin with this. Where do we begin with dreams? I mean, Louis, you were the one who thought we should do this topic. What was going through your mind when you were thinking about doing dreams?
Well, let's start off with an experience. I think that's always a good place to start. A story. Welcome to LOA Today. We'll wait for Walt to have a look at YouTube.
The computer to be quiet.
I've just done the same thing. So I wanted to talk about an experience I had. So, you know, the New Age crowd, they're always talking about, well, they're talking about crystals. So as a new boy on the block of about 20 years old, I was going and buying crystals here and there and playing with them and coming to the conclusion that crystals were absolutely woo-woo rubbish and didn't do anything to anybody. Now, at this time, I'd collected probably about 10 mediocre ones that didn't cost massive amounts of money. Mostly quartz crystals, etc. So I got to the stage where I decided, I heard somewhere, somebody said to me, put them under your pillow. Just put a crystal under your pillow. So I thought, what the hell? I'll take every one of my crystals and put it under my pillow.
I hope you had a very soft pillow.
And I went to sleep, and I had these most incredible, vivid dreams. And I can't explain the color to you, but the color was almost out of this world. Not nothing, but some of them I'd seen before in this world, but other ones I hadn't. And it was just so incredibly intense. The dream and the colors within the dream. And I don't think I'd dreamed in color before. I wasn't sure of that at all. So what happened was I woke up absolutely scared out of my wits. I took every single one of the crystals and I went into my garden, dug a hole and buried them. Yeah. And it was only weeks and months later when I started taking individual ones out of the ground again. But from that day onwards, my respect for crystals, and also because of this chat we're talking about dreams, was changed forever.
So was there anything that you could interpret from the dreams besides the color?
When it comes to interpreting dreams, I'm pretty bad. Mildly. I have some wacko dreams like you have no idea.
Well, we won't do competitions here because I suspect a number of us do rather wacko dreams, but
well, yeah, the thing is that scientists believe dreams should be wacko. and there's different schools of beliefs of what dreams are and the purpose of them. But one of them is the idea that dreams are basically the emotions that you've experienced recently, whether from a conversation or an interaction or from a movie, they get processed during the night. Firstly, when you sleep, the thing is, they assume that your conscious mind is now shut off. So the only thing that's working is your subconscious mind. And one of the things that it's doing is processing the activities of the day, or it doesn't have to be that particular day. It could be a few days ago, but it's processing. But in processing the activities, what it's really doing is it's processing the emotions. And so because it's processing the emotions, and the language of emotions is not as precise as, say, words, that they get kind of all jumbled up. And so that's why sometimes you get these dreams that make no sense, but there is an emotional component to them. And one of the things that the dream scientists, and they are those, have found, is that there are some dreams that transcend culture and time and space and region and stuff like that. For example, we've all had the dream of falling and you can't stop falling, the one where you keep falling. And they believe that those dreams are usually about feelings of anxiety and being out of control, whatever that you may have experienced that emotion recently, or you thinking you're going to experience that emotion. And so that's what those dreams are usually about. And then there's the dream of being somewhere in public and you have no underwear on or something like that. And what was interesting is that they said they found these dreams to be common in cultures where people wore very little clothes to begin with. But those were usually associated with feelings of shame. There was something happening in your life where you were either threatened, or you projected that there was going to be something that was going to bring some kind of shame to you. And there are other dreams, of course, there's always the one about a scary monster or something like that, somebody running after you, and so those are some of the more common emotions. But all of your dreams are processing emotions. And then there are the dreams about clearing out the memory space, clearing out the short-term memory and putting things into long-term memory. And then, of course, there are dreams about solutions to problems. So I want you guys to talk about that first before I talk about those.
Yeah, sure. It was interesting. You mentioned falling dreams, and I don't think I've ever had a falling dream.
Okay.
What was the other dream you said?
Wearing
underwear or something. So
something like that, yes. Or anything, or being less. I don't know if it's less
yeah. I don't know if it's because I'm a nudist or or what, but I've never had one of those either.
Okay.
So, what I have had is a dream when I was a kid, a recurring dream.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know quite what they say about recurring dreams, but that might be interesting. But it was a little bit like a snowball, but in a desert. So these round balls were in the distance, and they came from all different angles, and they had the snowball effect. So when they came to me, they not only looked bigger because they were coming closer, but they increased in size. And then just before they hit me, I woke up in a sweat. That
Yes.
was a recurring dream at that
Yeah,
stage.
that sounds like the falling dream, because you keep falling and
It
falling and
does,
falling,
yeah.
and just before you hit you ground, you wake up, kind of thing, you know.
Yeah,
So,
it's just a bit sideways.
yeah, right. Yours is well.
So the
Freud would have
parallel's
something
probably
to
fairly
say about
accurate
that.
there.
You know, Sigmund Freud believed that all dreams had some kind of sexual connotation to them. But that may be a Sigmund Freud problem more than anything else.
I reckon it was probably very true for him, but
yes, exactly.
Freud, I think, was also dealing with rather extraordinary circumstances, which we need not get into in great detail. But he was dealing with a lot of sexually abused women, but he was not allowed by his own profession to talk about that, so he had to go off in that crazy direction. Yeah, interesting thing that Abraham has said about dreams is that they tend to reflect what's going on in your life. So if you're having good dreams, then you're in alignment most of the time. If you have not good dreams, you're not in alignment most of the time. That sounds like it's kind of in alignment with what science is saying.
The other thing Abraham has said, which was quite interesting, is that dreams generally take up quite a short period of time of your sleep. And I never really thought about it until they mentioned it. It was like, oh, I wonder why nobody's ever mentioned that, or I've never picked that up before. Because they like pointing out that when you go to sleep, you maintain the vibration that you go to sleep at. So if you go to sleep feeling good, you'll wake up feeling good. But if you go to sleep feeling bad, you'll wake up feeling bad. And then somebody said, what about dreams? And I'll say, well, yeah, it does vary during dreams, but it's a very short period of time during your sleep. So
yeah,
which again
that was interesting to me. That is something maybe worth studying. You know?
It also matches what science has said, because I remember taking a dreams course back in school, and they talked about the different dream cycles throughout the night. Your first one lasts just a few minutes, and the second one's a little bit longer. And by the time you get to the last dream of the night, it's like a full-length movie. But you're right; most of the dreams are pretty short in duration. The other thing that always amazed me about dream research is if you listen to like a TED talk by a dream researcher, they'll impress upon you that first of all, don't get too worried about dreams. Second of all, make sure you get enough sleep.
Yes.
And then somebody in the audience will notice that the dream researcher has bags under his eyes, and they'll say, well, if sleep is so important, why do you look like you're sleep deprived? He says, I'm a sleep researcher. What are you saying? I stay awake when everybody else is asleep.
Yes. Yeah, they have to monitor all the because when they study people sleeping, they put these contraptions on their heads, and the researcher has to sit there and watch the screen for what's happening while these people are sleeping. But yeah, dreams, they say, only take about in total, the time you spend dreaming is about 90 minutes out of the 5-6 hours that you're sleeping, because you go through all these cycles, and then
7, 8 hours, 9 hours sleeping.
Yeah, exactly. For those of us who do get that much.
It's funny too, because I used to get very short sleep, 4, 5, 6 hours, and I felt it, and it affected me. And now the last few years, I've been getting full night's sleep. And if I'm only like 6 hours in, I feel deprived. Like, oh heck no, I'm going back to sleep.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing I noticed was, Uohna, you can maybe talk on this, is I used to have these dreams, when I was talking about these rolling things, or, I remember once a baboon standing on my window going rah, rah, right over my head while I was sleeping, and absolutely scared the bejeebies out of me. But I haven't had a scary dream in any shape or form for so many years. I can't even remember how long now.
Yeah,
it doesn't exist.
Right. So that may be an indicative of what you've been saying, in that since you have come to understand the unlimited power, I forgot the words you use.
The rules to the game of life, the unlimited power, source potential.
No, your own that you have within you. This
yes.
Yeah. And that has given you so much confidence. And so I think that on a
I would definitely agree with that.
You have let go of a lot of your fears. So that's why you're not happy, because a lot of the times we go around and we're like, everything's great, everything's fine. I'm not scared, I'm not worried, but subconsciously you are. And those things will only show up in your dream. But going back to something that Walt was talking about, sleeping is critical to health. And even dreaming is important, right? Because they believe that, when you're sleeping, and in particular, so when you're sleeping, that's the time the brain is actually cleaning and reorganizing itself. I mean, literally, there are cells that actually take up the debris and all the waste matter that has been produced by the activity of the brain during the day. So a lot of the cleaning and maintenance of the brain happens when you sleep. And it has to be a certain depth of sleep. You can't sleep lightly and have that happen. You have to go into the deep REM sleep and beyond for that to happen. And the other thing, as I mentioned, is that they have found that there's this transfer of memories of stuff from the short term to the working memory into long-term memory. And so if you don't get enough sleep, you find that your memory suffers. And that's why they always tell students, don't try to cram, the day of your exam, because you'll find that things will go into short-term memory. And then, short-term memory has a very small capacity. So when you try to put something in short-term memory and then you learn something right after that, that's going to clear out short-term memory and replace it. So
that explains why I never remember what I've had for lunch.
Right, it's just in your
yesterday.
short-term memory, exactly.
And so cleans it out. It cleans out all the rubbish.
It does. So that's why sleep is important. So when you learn during the day and you sleep, it gets organized and consolidated and put into the long-term memory. So then now your short-term memory is free for you to learn more stuff and study and understand. And so that's why sleep is important to your cognitive, but it's also important, of course, to your physical health. So that's why, and of course, everybody needs different levels of sleep, but I'm never impressed by people who tell me, oh, I can get along fine with 4 or 5 hours of sleep. That to me, I don't think that's particularly healthy. So.
Understandable. Josephine had a question here that I wanted to bring in. I don't know if you saw that, Louis.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Yeah, she was asking if anyone had heard of Dolores Cannon, who apparently is like Edgar Cayce in that she talks about dreams, and she was wondering if we're familiar with her work and what thoughts we might have about her. Louis, do you know anything about her?
I don't know anything about Dolores, but I know a lot about Edgar.
Mm-hmm.
He was a phenomenon, really. Quite an incredible individual. The ability to look at somebody and see their past lives and tell them what is from their past life is ailing them in this life. And he was so incredibly,
right.
Edgar Cayce.
Okay.
I read the book by Gina Sinney wrote on Edgar Cayce, and it's probably one of the best I ever found. But quite a fascinating study. This individual who really wanted nothing to do with any of this had this incredible ability to see the links between basically, as we now understand it from Abraham Hicks, old thought patterns and how they're hindering you to moving forward. You could tell why kids are wetting their beds. You could tell everything. He was just incredible. And once he gave them the information, it helped them release it, and they moved on. And it was very quick and easy for a lot of it. Dolores Cannon, never heard of her. So if she's similar to Edgar, it's an incredible ability for these guys to have. Absolutely amazing.
So did Edgar Cayce interpret dreams?
Yeah. I think everything. He did he just had a brilliant ability to tap into different vibrations, I suppose we'd now understand it. He'd be able to tune himself into different fields, pick up information, and then spew it out.
Okay.
Yeah, my sister PJ is very much of an Edgar Cayce fan. I don't know if you knew that, Uohna, but she's very much into him, and kind of confirming what you very briefly alluded to, Louis. Edgar Cayce was not a particularly nice person to be around. He was actually in many ways an unpalatable person, but like you said, had amazing abilities.
Very direct, and that directness rubbed off on people. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, also apparently some of his personal habits weren't all ideal.
Oh.
But we won't go into
Okay. I must have missed some of that.
Okay.
I didn't miss any of it, I can promise you.
Yeah, I
But,
just Googled Dolores Cannon, and apparently she was, in addition to being a past life regressionist, she was a hypnotherapist who specialized in categorizing or cataloging lost knowledge. So like the individual. So, you know, I'm familiar with that idea because people, there's a school of thought that you have stored every single memory of everything that has ever happened to you. It is there. And
Abram concurs that the universe stores everything and nothing's ever lost.
Right.
Ever.
And so there are people who know how to tap into that and access that. But one of the things is that they...
Can I just elaborate on that precise point? I don't know if you know about Scientology.
Yes, I know about Scientology. Tom Cruise.
Scientology clear engrams. And if you clear every engram, you become ultimately a clear. If you're a clear, there is no block in your memory from pre-birth, birth, up to the point you're at now. And you sat in front of a panel and they grill you of every single one. And then you eventually get told that you're a clear. And clears tend to have the ability to be able to read minds and do quite phenomenal things because they have none of what they don't want anymore, none of the vibrations that are holding them back anymore. Yeah. So they get to quite an interesting place.
So not only should we be careful about what is we choose to attract, but now we got to be careful about what we say, because all of it's permanently recorded, beyond the internet.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, what I know from Scientology, besides all the Tom Cruise and all that drama, but I know that their program really helps people who are struggling with drug addiction, in that they are able to understand what's underlying those addictions and actually able to overcome it. So,
well, getting rid of the engrams, and on the physical level, they've got a detox program, which you take things like niacin.
Yeah.
You take niacin, and sauna for long periods of time with a good mineral vitamin tablet.
Yeah.
Low temperature, long periods of time. And, anybody who was a smoker or has got drugs or anything that's inside the body, it really cleans it out. Because, I've used that book in my sauna and in my sauna philosophy for years, absolutely years. And it's been extremely effective.
Yeah. And, that goes along with something we talked about, the fact that, and this is what, what's her name? Candace Perth wrote about, in which she says that the body is the subconscious mind. And so some of that process that the Scientologists talk about is the clearing of some of those blocks that might be stored in various parts of your body. And it's going along with something I think Josephine brought up a couple of weeks ago when talking about the emotion and the emotion code. That's a whole branch of energy healing, where they kind of tap into certain regions of the body where you're either having certain physical ailments or pain or anything that's showing up as a representation of some kind of emotional block that's stored there that needs to be released and healed, so that the person can be free of that.
And for people who don't know Candace Pert, give a quick bio of who Candace was, because she was a pretty important and amazing person.
Yes, actually, she was the NIH scientist who discovered that we have on the surface of our cells receptors for certain neurotransmitters. In particular, I think she discovered the endorphin receptor, and it showed that we have these receptors on our cells that allow us to experience various emotions. And she wrote extensively about that. And one of the books I think she wrote was Your Body is the Subconscious Mind. And she wrote another book called Feeling Good or God, and she spelled it G-O, and she put an additional O in parentheses and then D. So it's like God and good were almost equivalent. But I'm such a huge fan because of course she did what I hope to do, combining science with the whole field of energy and the other world outside of the material world, so that they both kind of overlap, which reminds me of that video that Louis sent to us last week, that trans-rational type science that is now becoming more and more popular, where it's a combination of the rational science that we have been studying, that we can see and hear and feel and measure, and then what was known as the irrational science, the knowledge that came to people from other world senses that we tended to either discount or look down on, and now scientists are recognizing the virtue of that and combining them into one field that's really having a very powerful effect on people. So
Candace's work is really quite extraordinary. That's why I want to make a point of mentioning that to people who may not have heard of her, because she is truly a mainstream scientist. She, like you said, she made some major contributions, particularly early on, as the whole field of neurotransmitters and neuroscience was kind of becoming what it was. It was just kind of emerging out of nothing.
Right.
And she didn't get a lot of credit for that in the popular press, but certainly in the scientific circles, she gets a ton of credit. And yet she also had this sort of spiritual side to her. She got a lot of pushback on that one.
Yeah.
But it was good that somebody from inside was actually pushing that kind of message. I think it kind of helped get us to where we are today scientifically.
Yeah, definitely. It was a huge leap. Yeah, her mentor was, in science you have your mentors like your father and your grandfather and kind of thing in the science field. And I think her mentor was the science son of I can't remember the name, but a Nobel Prize winner. They were very well-renowned scientists, and the work she did was actually Nobel Prize worthy. But she encountered some politics in the field, as is one to happen.
Let's be real specific. She ran into some gender discrimination.
Yes, exactly. It was gender discrimination. Yes.
I mean, she was a woman working in a man's field in the 1960s and 1970s predominantly.
Yeah.
And during that time, if the woman did any kind of work at all that produced any kind of result, the man took the credit.
He took credit for it. Exactly. Yeah. But
unfortunate but true.
Yeah, but she wrote her book and got the word out, and now we all know who she was.
Yeah, she's now respected, at least in the textbooks, if nothing
else.
Yes,
absolutely, yeah. Because now
I wanted to kind of get back on track, and I just wanted to give another example because I started with crystals. I'm going to continue with them. I was in Zimbabwe, Southern African country. Where actually I got married. I got married at Victoria Falls. But when I was wandering around the streets there and all the rest, actually was when I was driving and on the side of the road, I went and picked up some malachite eggs, about that size. So I picked up about 3 of them, and I've always loved malachite. It's always fascinated me how it's got all those whirls and twirls and how it's beautifully green and all the rest of it. It's just an absolutely incredible stone. I can see Uohna going to type on.
Yes, I'm Googling malachite stone because I don't know what that is.
Actually, if you give me a second, I can pop out and go get a raw malachite stone for you, which can give you an idea what the raw one is.
Oh my goodness, they are beautiful.
They are absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. But I wanted to give you the story. So I'm at the stage, I have a respect for gemstones and crystals, hugely. And I thought, I'm going to play with this malachite. So what I did is I held it in my fist and put it on my chest, and I went to sleep. And what I was done, and I was transported very vividly and very clearly into the past on the planet. And I was shown all around the planet, on the Rhine and different castles, PowerPoints, and how they moved and changed as the Earth got older, as it got older to where it is today. and it was showing me all different parts of the planet and all these different PowerPoints and all this information. And it was just so overpowering. I woke up absolutely sweating, holding this thing so tightly onto my chest. I actually had to prise my fingers open and let it out. And as I let it out and put it on the floor, I just got this this like release of this complete energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, I was so happy that I didn't have this huge buzz in me anymore, and I could just relax. I fell asleep again. So I lost probably about 80% of all that information because I went back to sleep again. When I woke up, I remembered bits and pieces, and I wrote it all down and remembered it. But it was most incredible dream / vision experience of my life because of the clarity of it. Now, a little bit later on, I bumped into an incredible book. It's called Gemstones Guardians, or its old title was Gemisphere Luminary by Michael Katz. And in it, he explains who the guardians, he goes and talks directly from a non-physical perspective to the guardians of the gemstones. So he gets to explain to you what the gemstone's value is to the earth, and when you take it out and make it into a round ball, put it on your body, how it affects a human. And what the malachite does is it sends out from the different stratospheres of the angles of those different shapes and colors that you can see in it, those whirls, and it pulses out. And it pulses out until it it picks up all the information along the way. And when it hits another malachite, it absorbs all this information. And then it continues pulsing out the new information, and it pulses it out. It pulses it out until it hits the stratosphere, bounces off, then comes back to Earth and picks up all information. So they say when we can tap into the knowledge of malachite, we'll be able to tap into how to increase gravity, how to make things lighter, etc. We'll be able to make pyramids again. So all that kind of knowledge is inside this one stone, because it's kept all the knowledge of the earth from the beginning of time till now, and it's got everything. It's got absolutely
I'm curious
everything.
about
and
like
then this is the next level.
Okay.
Is when you take it and you put it onto a human, what it does is it tells every single cell of your body what's going on in every other cell. So if you've got cancer in some area and you're healthy in another, it'll tell the whole body what's going on with all the other parts of the body, which allows you to heal much better because you now got the awareness aspect in the cells of your body. So once I read this book, I mean, I was blown away by it completely, because of not only that chapter, but the whole book itself is quite fascinating, all the different gemstones that he talks about. So yeah, they've actually got a website. It's called Gemisphere, gemisphere.com. And they sell beautiful gemstones, of course. Yeah, he's made a business out of it and money and all the rest of it. So yeah, it's just really, really interesting. I bought some of his gemstones, and one of them is the river stone for my wife when she was giving birth. Put it around the neck, and it speeds up change. And my wife gave birth to our first daughter in 2 hours, and literally at home in the toilet by herself while I'm trying to fill up the water pool. And the second child, she was born in 1 hour. And both times she used the stones, and she did put it down to that helping, also the mindset and who she is. I mean, she's a nurse and very confident individual. So yeah, it's just something I wanted to bring up because you can get dreams and visions, etc., using gemstones, which is, to me, it was quite amazing. It's not my only ones, but that's an idea of some of the things that have happened to me with gemstones and visions and dreams. And I'd like to also talk about the difference between dreams and vision, but we can go into that a bit later.
Well, I want to ask about the gemstones first.
Sure.
In part because others have also talked about gemstones and rocks and various icons like that. And Linda Armstrong in particular is somebody who's really much into that. And I'll ask you something that I asked her because you apparently have had some pretty vivid experiences with it. I have at times experimented with various pieces of rock, I'll call them, and got nowhere. I've had no experience whatsoever. So I'm wondering.
Gosh, you were me on my first story.
Okay.
You remember I was saying I tried all these gemstones, I played with them, and I got absolutely nowhere. Just about to throw them out. Yep.
Right. So
what
that led to my question. What changed? Because I haven't experienced that change. I want to know what to look for, I guess.
Well, that's when he put them all under his pillow at that night, and
now you know what to do.
Kept with them.
Go dig them up.
You have to spend the night with them, Walt, very intimately.
So it's about being lumpy. I'll be lumpy.
Walt, I'm trying to understand myself what it was about, and I can only think that when I changed my vibration and I started tuning into different vibrations, then the wealth of information started coming in. And to me, that's all relating to the old game, which is awareness, becoming more aware, tuning in, becoming more aligned more often of the time, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say if you started playing with them again, you might have a different reaction. And I would say don't use any of your old stones. Go out and use the law of attraction to choose the next one for you.
Okay. And you also mentioned the malachite, which you have a very strong positive affinity for. You really like that stone a lot. I'm wondering if the fact that you liked it so much made a difference in terms of the kind of experience you had.
Of course, because if you like it or not, you focused on it. And if you focused on it, you're going to draw that vibration to you. And if you're tuning into that vibration, you're going to get the download from that area. Yes, absolutely. There's no denying your own desires and thoughts and feelings on a subject is going to affect it. Yeah.
You know, interesting when you mentioned the malachite, and I looked it up. One of the things I saw here, it says that malachite is a stone that can actually draw out emotions, your emotions to the surface, and it can activate all of the heart and the throat chakras in particular. And, you know, it reminded me that, you know, I told you that my grandmother was a medicine woman. And one of the things that she used to do was make these little amulets for people. And she would put these kinds of gemstones in there and give it to them to wear around their necks for whatever issue it is that they were dealing with, whether it was health or mental or financial or whatever. And as a child, I kind of discounted my grandmother as, whatever, because in fact, I wanted to have nothing to do with what she was doing, which I regret now. I wish I had paid attention and learned, but, it was kind of looked down on by, the formal religious practices and stuff like that. But the interesting thing was my grandmother, she said to me one time that, I asked her something and she said, I said, why do these people come to you? So why do they believe in you? And she said, they believe in me because I believe in them. And, I thought, okay, whatever. But now I'm realizing, I think my grandmother understood more about the whole idea of the body, the conscious mind, the subconscious mind healing themselves, because she knew that if they believed that they were going to get better by the amulets she gave them, then they did all the time. And going back to something Louis was saying, that using the gemstone, he was able to connect with these other energies and information. But I want to think that maybe it was a way of you connecting with the information that's already in there. And that brings me to the last point about dreaming, where people, there's so many famous stories of great scientists and inventors and, Einstein and others who got all of their revelation through dreams. They were able to, who was it? Was it Tesla? Who was the boss of Tesla? It was in that video. Edison, right. He had this trick where he would spend time trying to go into sleep, but he would hold a pencil in his hand such that when he fell asleep too deeply, the pencil would fall and would wake him up. So that way he could wake up just at the point in his dream state, so he could remember what he dreamt and write it down. And I think that's one of the things that I came away with when I was doing a little research about dreams, is that it's important to get into the habit of recording your dreams, because I know it has happened to me several times over the years. You get up, you wake up, you remember a dream, and like within minutes, the dream is gone, you've forgotten, but the more you get in the habit of trying to remember, the more you do remember, and your dreams can actually have some insight and messages and help you with decisions that you're trying to make. So there is a source of energy and information that's inside of us that we can tap into through our dreams.
When it comes to
that he was this kind of a early dream researcher before dream research became
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And he was not the only one. There were quite a few scientists and I think one of the great musicians, I forgot which one, who is either Beethoven or what's the other guy?
There's a few of them.
Yeah.
Bach.
Who knows?
No, there was one who he others would write their whole symphonies part by part. They would make corrections, but there was one of them who would get the whole Mozart, the whole symphony downloaded to him without having to make any changes that whatsoever, which I thought was really incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was
Mozart went into the Roman, the Vatican Cathedral, listened to a piece of music, and which was supposed to be very special and hidden, and nobody had all the information for it. He went out and he wrote the entire thing down, gave it to the world. At the age of 6, I mean, like.
yeah, he had an amazing.
It must be nice to have eidetic memory. That's all I can say.
Yeah, definitely.
But I wanted to bring up something that struck me when you said your mom said this.
My grandma.
So your grandma said this. So there's something that I learned along the way is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Absolutely.
And I think she was probably pointing to a little bit of that.
True. Yeah. Yes.
It just struck me when you were saying that.
That's true. And as much as I try to distance myself from my grandma, I've inherited so much of her qualities. It irks me.
Nice try.
I know, but it's the same thing.
Why would you want to distance yourself from her?
Well,
was she a bit woo-woo?
Yes, exactly. At least that was how everybody else looked at it. That was the kind of stigma associated with it at that time. And my grandma had very basic education. So, and then here I was aspiring to be a scientist. So it seemed a total contradiction. Now I know that's not true. But going back to the idea with people, all my life, people have been coming to me and telling me their deepest secrets and just sharing. And oh my God, I mean, you can ask my husband at church, at my school, my friends, everybody and I'm thinking, Granny, leave me alone. But yeah, she was very much loved by the people, and she loved them. So that probably was a big part of the work that she did.
That seems to be a common pattern among people who co-host with me here on the show. Everybody here, myself, Louis, Linda, Rita, Cindy, Alec, I mean, everybody, Dan, everybody here has people constantly coming to them.
Yes, all the time. All the time.
Yeah.
All in slightly different ways. We all have different points of attraction.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what makes the show interesting, which is cool. Something I wanted to mention, for the longest time, I've talked about this on the show too. For the longest time, I was one of those people who would never remember dreams, or if I did, it was very rare, and a little snippet that would last, 5 seconds or whatever. And that had been going on for years and years and years. In the last 5 or 6 months or so, all of a sudden, I'm remembering dreams. And what's really interesting to me is, in the past, if I remembered a dream, it was usually a snippet of something that was quite unpleasant. Very rare for me to experience something that was, feeling good. Last 5 or 6 months, all the dreams I've been remembering have felt good.
Yeah.
Which
I think showing a huge change within you.
Yes,
that's an alignment shift for sure. But
absolutely,
also that now I'm starting to remember them. It's like there was a resistance block of some kind that has cleared out of the way, and now all of a sudden it's coming through. For whatever reason, I wasn't letting it through before. Now I'm letting it through now. I have to admit, I have to pat myself on the back. I'm letting through the good ones. I like that.
Yes, yes.
Good.
Have you been writing anything down?
No, I haven't felt the need or a desire to write down. I was just enjoying the fact that I can remember them and I like them.
Yeah, because why I asked that, because one of the things that some of these scientists would do would specifically ask their subconscious minds questions just before they went to sleep.
Oh, yes.
Like, yeah, keep them some issue in mind, and then they would dream about the solution when they woke up.
Yeah, Linda Armstrong calls that going to night school.
Yeah, yes. Exactly.
And she does it regularly, quite
Yeah.
frequently. Cindy does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also, I found with my out of body experience, there are places you can go to. You can call them temples, you can call them whatever you want. They're just places where you can go and sit and learn and get lessons and learn. And there's loads and loads of teachers and information out there. It's
Do you find that after
incredible.
if you've done that, have you done that? I guess I'm presuming, have you actually put yourself in a place to learn like that? And when you do learn that way, do you find that you're more refreshed in the morning or more tired, or how does it work?
You're exhilarated but exhausted, so it's kind of like a combination. You wake up and you look in the mirror and you feel quite changed, so you're like, who's this person I'm looking at? It's quite disconcerting because the old patterns have kind of removed. You've got some new patterns and you can't quite perceive what you're perceiving. And, it's like it's new and it's fresh, and you do tend to go back to your old thoughts patterns if you don't keep on focusing on the new philosophy, the new thoughts, the new way. The old patterns will dig in again. It's absolutely guaranteed now.
Yeah.
It's interesting how that works. That well, like you say, first of all, if you want to really learn from it, you have to record it. You've both been making that point pretty clear. It's one of those things that I've often wondered, do I really want to learn from my dreams? And I guess up until now, the answer has been no. At some point, it'll probably become yes. And when I say yes, that's when I'll start writing the dreams down. But how important do you think it is to learn from your dreams?
I think it is. I think there's so many times we have, decisions, big, small decisions, just issues at the back of our mind. And a lot of times we tend to make those decisions based on our conscious minds. But, I believe our conscious minds are very limited in the information that is available to them. I think if we got the wisdom of our subconscious mind, it would reveal so much more and make our decisions, make us so much better at making decisions as far as our life is concerned, in terms of what we really want to do, what will make us happy, what will bring us fulfillment, which direction we should go in, everything from, should we pursue this goal or should we spend this money? Should we buy this car? Should we marry this man? All those things. I don't make those decisions anymore, but you know what I mean.
Well, you made that one. You were done.
I made that one, yes. And it was a good one.
Yes, I totally agree. I'm biased.
But like Walt, you've said to me, at times, and I think you've expressed on the show that there's things that you trying to figure out what's the next step, as far as I don't know.
And I do use that. I use sleep for that. I mean, not routinely, but regularly will go to sleep with a question in my mind. Okay, I'm dealing with this X right now, and I was struggling with it all day, and I just couldn't find an answer. I finally had to just let go of it. But give me a clue, and almost every single time I'll wake up with a clue, or sometimes a full-blown solution. I'm not quite Mozart, but
but something, yes, some direction to move in at least. Yeah.
When I get the full complete answer, I think, oh, this is stuff is really, really good. But I'll settle for the ones where I get a little clue. At least I can do.
Yeah. I've experienced that where I'm struggling with, like I'm doing one of my data analysis and it's turning out to be a nightmare and I'm going in all these directions kind of thing. And I know that there is a solution, but for some reason I can't. And so I would actually, before I go to sleep, I would make a request that I find the solution. And the next morning, I think about it and it's so obvious. It's like, why didn't I think about that before? It makes so much sense. But
I think what happens is, I think it's probably also goes to how I go about doing it. If you go into this with the idea that you're going to ask yourself the question, and then you're going to let your mind just kind of worry over it. You probably won't get there.
Right.
But what I do is I pose the question, and then because I pose the question and I kind of trust that I'm going to get some kind of an answer, I let go completely. I go right to sleep. There's no hesitation or anything like that. And I suspect that makes a big difference.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
But I want to say one thing, because I know Louis wants to talk about the difference between dreams and vision, and it's along that line. Where that
don't think we got time for that now. There's something else I want to talk about too.
Oh, I see. But there was that story that was shared in the video you sent us, Louis, about these people. I think it's in the Amazon, South America somewhere, and these people were combining together to have this. They were all in one mind, and this lady, this researcher somewhere else in the Western world, she was having these dreams of seeing these people, and she couldn't understand what that was. And somehow things worked out, and she ended up there with those same people. And they said, "Yeah, we called you. We were we were sending out." So I thought that was interesting. But anyways, you have 8 minutes, Louis.
Well, I only have 5.
Well, fortunately, we started a little bit late, so you have a little bit more than that.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
So what is the difference between a vision and a dream? So I would kind of say a vision is something that happens to you really when you're awake. So I'll give you an example of a vision that I had, which was quite weird, really. I saw this palm tree, everything else blanked out. I couldn't see anything else. I could only see this palm tree, and it was very, very far away. But then I zoomed into it, and I zoomed in, and I zoomed. It was 100% clear, not like you're zooming in with a camera and it gets a bit more blurry. And I zoomed in right until I was into the bark.
Wow.
Into the molecules of the bark. And, you kind of like wake up. It's like, what did I actually experience? It's like unbelievable. It's like, this is just not happening to me. How did this happen? And that I would call a vision. Not necessarily prophetic or anything, but very different from dreams. As I was completely awake, I was sitting on the side of my bed, I wasn't fortunate
that it happened in the 21st century. If it had happened back in the 1950s, you would have been diagnosed as schizophrenic and thrown into a mental institution.
Yes,
oh no, they'd call me a witch, and then they would want to throw me into a lake. And if I floated, then I would be a witch, and if I drowned, then I'd be dead, and it would be all okay. I wasn't a witch. I love that philosophy. It's just like, did they really do that? Come on, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Life was cheaper back then.
But the thing is that that was happening while that was happening in the Western world. In other parts of the world, like in India, these people were actually revered,
celebrated.
Celebrated. And what Louis, your vision reminded me of the story of this Hindu pundit who was he could now we think that he could so take himself deeply from the beta into the alpha into the theta voluntarily, and he would have these visions. And one of them was he was able to trace oxygen going into his lungs and then traveling through his the blood vessels in his bodies all the way to his fingertips, and he could do that throughout his body. And this enabled him to trace out the pattern of blood vessels in the human body with such an accuracy that it would take hundreds of years later for scientists to verify just how accurate and he did this all by this traveling transitant vision. I don't even know how to describe it, but he was able to do that. And like I said, there were these Indian pundits who could not only travel within, they could travel into outer space and understand how the planets and the stars operated long before we had telescopes or anything like that. So pretty amazing.
Yeah, the Ayurvedic and the old knowledge is some incredible stuff there. Yes, but I went to Bodyworks in London. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but this German guy gets donated human bodies, and he kind of free dries them. He kind of like rubberized them, and you go there and you see this huge display of livers cut up, hearts cut up, lungs cut up, bodies cut into strips. So you can see and separate a little bit, so you can see every different layer from all the way down the body, from top to bottom. See a guy's skin's, his entire skin has been taken off and it's hanging over his arm.
Wow.
And you know, and I just thought this was most amazing. But you were talking about the veins, and they had managed to remove every single vein out of one individual and put it in water, in a liquid with a beautiful light behind, and you can see the red ones and the purple ones, and you know, and it was just incredible how they managed to get every single vein out of the body. Would have been so amazing.
You remember?
And you managed to actually eat lunch after that. That's impressive.
Oh, it's not gory. It looks like
I love
art.
the body, and
It's
I was so
beautiful.
excited about this, Walt. And there was kids, school kids coming through there by the thousands, and nobody seemed disgusted by anything, and I definitely wasn't.
We had one of those come to town. It was a traveling museum. I think it was from China. I'm not sure, but they had the lungs, like you said, and they showed the entire blood vessel work. So they removed all the other tissues and just the blood vessel, so you could see the shape of the lungs, but you had all these
and you can see the kidneys where they got this huge accumulation of blood vessels.
Yes, it was, oh my God,
I didn't know that. I didn't really understand it. You know, visually it's just so powerful. Oh, it was really good. Sorry, going far away from dreams and visions. Okay.
No, but the fact that there were people who were able to see this in dreams before we had this technology.
Well, we're not that far away. I mean, we're in nightmare territory from this. Not that far, really.
You see, what some people's
Walt.
nightmare is actually other people's beautiful dreams.
Exactly.
Exactly. It's all about your perspective. No doubt about it. I can't say I've had a whole lot of experience with visions now that we're defining them as daytime, I'm awake experiences. I've had a few. Most of the ones that I've had are near sleep. I'm not quite asleep, not quite awake. I'm in that like in between space. And there's a little piece of me that kind of is a little bit nervous when I'm passing through that zone. Like, okay, am I going to have something really strange happen right now, or can I actually go to sleep? But fortunately, most of the time it works out okay. But there have been occasions where I've had them, and they are quite real. It's amazing how real they feel.
But you know, there's the other thing of those what do you call those dreams where you know you're dreaming? What do you call those dreams?
I just call them
like
you're aware that you're dreaming dreams. I don't
know there's a
lucid
dreaming. Yeah, that's a whole another world. I've never had those, but I would love to have one.
Well, lucid dreaming is the precursor to out of body, and I've used it as the natural progression. Study your dreams, go to lucid, and from lucid to out of body. Yeah.
Okay.
What's the attraction to wanting to do out of body? It's something I never wanted to do. I know you've done it. Why do you like that so much? Why is that so interesting?
Well, first of all, it's not out of body. That's just to confuse you.
Okay.
What you're doing is you're just tuning your vibration into perceive different stuff. Okay. So you're not actually going anywhere. It's not the perception that you're going out of your body has been proven by all the scientists and all the guys who've studied it. It's not actually what happens. You don't actually leave the body, but you are able to tune into different vibrations, and that's all it is. If you wanted to understand it from an Abraham Hicks perspective, all you're doing is you're using your vibrational interpreting machine to tune into another channel.
To kind of travel to another channel. Okay, that makes sense.
And perceptually you move and you do things and all the rest of it. Like we perceptually, I mean, this world's an illusion. It's the same there. It's you're just moving with another illusion or the world that you can create. Because literally you want a cup or glass of tea, it appears instantly in your hand in the inner plane. If you want it to vanish, it just vanishes, you know. And you want to put clothes on, take clothes off, it's just a thought. It's just a perception. Yeah.
So it raises an interesting question that I guess is more existential than anything else, and that is, if all of that is created in our minds, and if what we're told is true, this world is created in our minds, then is it true that all of reality is nothing more than an illusion?
Well, an illusion or thought. So Abraham says thought created the entire universe. And of course, how you perceive the thought is how you will perceive the illusion. I mean, I imagine if an alien came and sat on Earth, they would perceive things completely differently to the way we do. They would look at things based on their perception of their planet. You know, it would be so different. They wouldn't see cars the way we see them. They wouldn't see, you know, everything would be so different, so different.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if they'll be able to see it when you've got some of these stories where these Aborigines who are on an island for centuries, and then they suddenly see this huge boat come and they don't see it, you know. Suddenly they see people walking out of the water because that's the first thing they can perceive, you know, that's real. That's something that they know could happen, is a human walking out of a sea. It's not too difficult for them. So everything else is blanked out. So I don't know what an alien would see if they came here, what we would see if we went to an alien.
You know,
I really don't know.
Reading about dreams, and they were talking about the conscious mind versus the subconscious, and then the superconscious, which is more like the soul. And the soul is observing us having this dream because it's like we chose to come here, we chose to have this experience, and the soul is completely indifferent. You know, if we are having a good time, it's because that's what we chose to have, and if we're suffering,
having a bad time,
yeah. And so the soul is just observing us interacting in this made-up world, basically, because that's what we wanted to do.
Which brings in the whole concept of the observer effect.
Mm-hmm.
Because the observer effect is where, when there is an observer, the physical manifestation, the physical behavior or activity or whatever it is changes because there's an
right.
observer.
Yep. As a
So
result of being
essentially,
observed.
our entire universe is observer driven.
Yep, absolutely. And
boy, is that a bit of a scary thought for us rationalists.
No kidding.
It blows a little pip to little pieces.
Yeah, so what
it'll
we're
send you right to the nearest
experiencing
mental
is because of what we're focusing on as we observe. So
Yep.
But that's a perception, Walt. It'll send us to a mental institute. It may liberate us completely, which is another perception. You know?
I prefer that one better, actually. I agree with you. Yeah. In fact, that's where the power comes from. Once we start to embrace that, that's where we really, I think that's where we start to become who we are. That's when we start to really
absolutely.
Just because we demonstrate the ability to do exactly this, to exactly decide what we're going to feel, what we're going to think, what we're going to experience, how we're going to experience it, what it's going to seem like to us, what our perspective is going to be. That's power. That's incredible power. And in an observer-driven universe, that's really, really powerful. Now add in this whole concept of attraction, and it's overwhelming.
Well, Walter, that what you're talking about now, that power, is perceived by Carolyn Mace as grace. And there is another word which she uses quite often, which is sacred. Nothing is sacred anymore. The law of attraction is just there to make money. Yeah, that's what people look at it, but it's not. It's not. It's fundamental. It's not where it's coming from. It's not the be all and end all of the law of attraction. Okay, so those are two subjects which I'd love to talk about maybe next week, is grace and sacred.
All right, I am writing them down in my notebook. Grace and sacred. Sacred. What was there a particular?
Just sacredness. Sacredness as an ism.
All right, grace and sacredness. We have a topic for next week. All right, that's the way to round it off for this week. Just a reminder to everybody who's not yet subscribed, become a subscriber. If you don't know how to do it, just go to the homepage of our website, loatoday.net. You'll get instructions on how to do it there. Check us out on YouTube. That's how you can actually see when Louis is pointing out what a malachite rock looks like, even though he wasn't actually holding one on occasion. If he is holding one, you can actually see it. Or if you want to share her
I'll run and get it.
That's right. So check us out on YouTube. You can see us there as well. More information coming about the project I mentioned last week. I have actually made some progress. Hopefully there is going to be an app sometime, maybe even this summer. You never know. So you'll be able to tune in directly to the app, and you'll be able to do a variety of things on this app. I'm really hoping to turn out an app that will do not just provide us with the ability to listen to the show, but do a bunch of things and involve listeners more in ways that we're doing. And I also...
That sounds great, Walter. I really like that idea.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been thinking about this.
It'll be like an online community, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And I'm also looking for a little bit of listener input. Anyone who wants to send in an email or contact us in the various ways you can reach out, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. I'm thinking about taking one of our shows, maybe one of the Tuesday or Thursday shows, and kind of experimenting with turning it into kind of like a game show. And by game show, I don't necessarily mean Jeopardy. I mean like a audience interactive type game situation. Not really sure what I mean by that, but I just throw it out there to see if it sticks to a wall somewhere. So if that
You
sounds
gotta
good.
sleep on it or dream on it, Walt.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I've been doing the last.
Walt, for the listeners and you, have a look at an application called for the phone called Insight Timer.
Insight Timer. Okay.
See what they've done with that.
All right, I'll check that one out. A good way to end the show and a good recommendation. So thank you very much for that. Okay, well, thanks for all the insights, guys. Thank you, live streamers. Thank you to our podcast listeners as well. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.